It's almost like guitar, bass, keyboard, and a drum set went into a phone booth and came out Superman. The Railboard, to me, is the next generation of stick. It's more than the next step of the instrument's evolution. We went from hollow body electric guitars to solid bodies, to Stratocasters, to Les Pauls. It was the next generation of the instrument. That's kind of how I see the Railboard. It's that powerful.
There are no guitars like that. It's called Railboard because it has the rails built into the one-piece aluminum beam structure. The rails are part of the board. The board is part of the neck. It's simple in construction, but it took a long time in designing, trying to incorporate every advantage I could possibly think of. The rails are integral to the neck and the fingerboard, the instrument. It's all one piece of aluminum. The rails themselves are built in, cut into the material. And instead of being at 90 degrees, they're 110 degrees. So these are done a little different. They're machined into place. They're shallower rails. And then a fly cutter comes over and cuts the tip tops all the way along for an absolutely flat and even playing surface. It feels good to the fingers. The pinch here at the edges is very small and it has a nice feel to the fingers. I think of it like an aircraft carrier. You have the beam itself, and then you have 7 parts that fit onto it. The headstock assembly, the neck strap, the flaps, which are the dual nut unit at the other end, the pickup block, the bridge, the truss rod, and the belt hook. So in creating this Railboard model, there were several advantages that I wanted to bring about on a new model, things that would make the playing easier and sound better. And so one of them is this distance here. It's extra distance from the first fret back to where the nut is. It's an extra 1 3/4 inches. And so when you tap the strings down at this very first fret, they sound like all the other frets going up. And they feel like all the other frets as well. I made it so it would play easier. The setup can be made very low, lower than I've ever been able to get them before, on any wood or any kind of material. It's like a keel on the bottom of a ship, and inside the keel is a truss rod that's pinned down in the middle, so it operates as 2 independent halves. One with a tensioning nut up here that controls the curvature of the lower pitched frets of the neck, and one with another similar nut that controls the straightness of the profile of the neck at the other end. The whole idea is to have a 4-way truss rod to totally control the profile of the neck. This is the bolt-on headstock that bolts onto the aluminum beam. It's a new innovation, injection molded with 10 tuning pegs. And from the back side, you can see that it bolts firmly into place at 4 locations here onto the aluminum neck. This is the R block. That means it's the Railboard block. It's like the other blocks, but it faces in the opposite direction in the diagonal angle, so that the jack comes out away from the player's body. The pickups are height adjustable to dip them down in the middle and get them close on the outside. It's in active mode with the light on. If I turn off the phantom power, the light slowly fades out and I'm in passive mode. And then it can go from stereo to mono. You get much more subtle tone controls. So it's dual controls for the mono and single panels for the stereo. There's some other advantages as well. It has built-in MIDI channel. MIDI is optional on it for the melody strings or the bass and the melody. And it has these bowl-like markers that are recessed into the aluminum. There's almost no control needed by the truss rod at all because the stainless steel is so stable. The action can be set about twice as low as I've ever been able to set the regular sticks that I do in production. The inspiration was out of pain and hard work. It's like years and years and years of setting up instruments and doing fret work laboriously like a jeweler. I got involved in the finest kind of fret work and clearances above each fret so that the setup would be as low as possible and the action as light as possible, the touch is light, the tapping is easy, as fast and as expressive as possible. The main inspiration for all the sticks is the freehands technique that I discovered on my guitar in 1969. And it's been any and all things to enable that technique. And at first it was very primitive sticks, just made by brute force. But they had everything I needed to play the technique to the hilt.
Guitar was my first instrument. When I got in the stick, I looked at it as kind of the best of all worlds. It has more range as far as more lows and highs. It's a touch-based instrument, so I mean, with bass guitar, for me to do, that's a two-handed line. I still have one hand left, so I can, and more fingers on the board, I can still slap, do all the other bass tricks. So, you know, you can't do that on guitar. You can't do that on bass. You can't do that on keyboard. Those are tricks that are very unique to this instrument. So it gives you all this freedom.
There are some inventions that go into the design. One of them is the integrated rails with the fingerboard and the neck, all one piece. And I actually have a patent on that. I came up with a technique, a machining technique of doing that on a CNC milling machine. They're all uniform, they're all consistent. They're all incredibly close action, just minute. The playing is easier than it's ever been, and it'll remain that way, nothing changes on it. This is the first time when I can give the work to someone else.